Welcome to another episode of An Inside Job. A doctor that I read who worked with ALCS up in Vancouver, in addicts, of course, Dr. Gabor Mate, in his book, In the Realm of the Hungry Ghost, which is the greatest for addiction, and his thoughts and experiences. But he explains addiction as biological, chemical, neurological, psychological, medical, emotional, social, political, economical, with spiritual underpinnings. I want to thank LTV for all their support, energy, and everything else it takes to make this show happen. They're just the best. They're the best. We're going into the fourth year of An Inside Job. With the numbers aren't confirmed yet. There's a little problem, but let's say 49. The show is on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Leominster TV, go to playlists, scroll down to An Inside Job. My name is Ron, and I'm your host. And I'd like to welcome my friend Dan, who did the last show of the season, and he's doing the first. We go way back. We go way back for 50 years. That's a long time. Danny got sober, and Danny's the reason why I got sober. Because I couldn't believe that he was sober, and he was sober a year. And that began my journey. Yes. Maybe I want to go off script a little. And I don't know if you watched the debate last night. I only watched part of it, but Susan she watched the whole thing. And one of the questions was, and I was delighted, was what can you do about the epidemic? And like I said, I was really happy they were talking about that. But as there were maybe 10 up there, there wasn't much being said about recovery of an addict. They were talking a lot, and should be, about Purdue Pharmaceutical and others, that they are the total cause for this thing. I don't believe that. So somewhere along in those lines, what do you have for me?
Well, I don't know as far as prevention of addiction. That's really a complex, because I would only think of it in terms of recovery.
Let me stop you there. What's the difference between recovery and just getting sober?
Well, recovery, in my estimation, is a definitely spiritual regeneration of yourself in cooperation with whatever philosophy or religious beliefs that you may choose to follow. And it's a remaking of your whole psyche and whatever part of your soul that you can reach, I guess. But as far as how you would anticipate who's going to be an addict or an alcoholic, that would be pretty. I don't know. I'm not a knowledgeable political person, and I don't know. I don't have personal experience with opiate addiction. So, yeah, that would be how to predict it and prevent it or something. It seemed like you would need a big dump truck with a vacuum cleaner and just go around picking them up.
Here we go.
I don't know. Because my mind wouldn't think of it in terms of predicting. I suppose keeping the substance, regulating the administration of the substance, but because I know there are social drinkers. I don't know if there are social heroin users. William Burroughs may have said that there are. I don't know. So as far as, I can see where you're looking at it, the broad landscape, sociologically or something, you would say, let's see, we want to take everyone between the ages of 14 and 30 and put a big net around them and keep them away from everything, because they're gonna, that's when the juices are running, and they're gonna experiment with anything that's available.
Right, but when does that journey into addiction? Yeah, you're exactly right.
I don't see how you could predict. Let's see. Yeah, it gets to be a really dicey subject because, I think it's generally accepted in our culture that there is a social use for alcohol, which would be what, a recreational use, or, and I think for psychedelic drugs would be the same, psychedelic drugs, but opiates, yeah, I guess I don't know if they have a recreational use. That could be a big weird debate that would, I'm sure it wouldn't go over as a topic with the, what do you call it, the political debate forum. But, there's definitely a medical use. There's medical use for alcohol, too. But, if you, I tend to look at things in an extremely broad sense, and someone might say it's ridiculous and dangerous to even, make a statement like that. Is there a recreational use? I don't know. If you view the world really broadly, you get into a lot of weird things.
Yeah, they were talking about that. One of the candidates was talking about, and we've heard it before, I don't know what they're called, but dropping to shoot your drugs.
Safe use sites.
And needles. My wife, Susan, has been in the field for a long time, and she has the education to go along with it. And she doesn't like that idea. And I don't like that idea. I haven't thought about it a whole bunch. It's a tough one. Excuse me. I'm still a little sick. Again, Dr. Mattei, he has enlightened me. First of all, teaching me from the different parts of this thing that it's not a one-dimensional thing, addiction. I'm not going to go through it, but there's just so many things coming into this. But one thing he does talk about is environment. And, it's a huge, I don't know what word to use, but there's people that grew up in a good home and started using, but what leads us to become? And he says environment.
Yeah, and he talks a lot about nurturing and, even prenatal exchanges between coming through the mother, from the environment, influences coming into the fetus and stuff like that. And they share a heartbeat and other stuff, so that makes sense to me.
Yeah. When I write, I say I've been affected by alcohol addiction my whole life, 72 years. When I came out of the womb, I'm sure my father was back at home, throwing them down, celebrating, and cigars and
Tensions in the home environment, and
Oh.
you would be picking them up through your mother, I would
Right.
think.
right. And I was able to watch that happen as it began, when anything, with everything being a good time. I spent, I don't know how long I've spent in bars waiting for my father to have a few, or my uncle. I mean, hours and hours in there. Not to say anything was bad, just that environment. But then, he talks about the abandonment of a child. I have to go back for me. That stuff, and I'm not a shrink, it goes down so deep that we aren't conscious of it, just how much trauma that has brought to our soul.
Yeah, and I would say broadly, as far as prevention goes, looking at it as, societally, culturally, socially, you would eliminate poverty, eliminate, as much as possible of the hardship and, mental illness problems and all that. Yeah, broadly, if you turn this into an ideal, arena or something of, eliminating all the possible negative, or minimizing all the possible negative things that would impact an infant, a child, a fetus, whatever. But aside from that, I wouldn't see, would you go out and give everybody the 20 questions, every man, woman, and child, every 6 months?
No.
And see when they've crossed the line?
In my opinion, I would like to understand what that difference is. What the difference is of the person, let's say, beautiful young girl, a bright light to society, and then coming down in a short amount of time now to doing some things that you couldn't even imagine. And a lot of those things have been witnessed on an inside job. Yeah, I don't know if I answered that. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's an inside job. It's us, right? It's us. And I think that is one answer. Us healing each other. And we do that in AA, but I think it has to be on a higher level. Things have changed. Things have come to where we are. But you talked about poverty and all that. It's costing this country $1 trillion a year for this. $1 trillion a year. Mass incarceration.
So you could give everybody $50 a head and a new convertible to each person and say, okay, are you happy now? But, it's so weird, because rich people, famous people, celebrities, people
right,
that seem
right.
to have everything
Right.
become just as it's just as ravaging on them as other people. So I think, I mean, did any of them seem to have any good ideas to you?
Well, I
last
didn't
night?
listen to it. I'm going to get the transcripts and see. But like I said, it was mostly to do with the pharmacies.
I would suppose, aside from social programs to try to give everyone in the society equal opportunity to grow and develop or something. Aside from that, then you have the regulation. Who's going to have access to it? So if I assume, say there's no social recreational use of opiates, then you'd say, okay, how are we going to make it available as its appropriate medical use as a pain reliever or whatever, and have strict regulations there. But so of course, maybe that would keep the numbers down or something like that. But as far as addiction itself, I mean, if you just take, two Homo sapiens or whatever on the open savanna and say, if everybody was foraging naturally for their own intoxicants, who would be foraging too deeply and spending too much time on it? So it was ruining his life in the tribal structure and ruining his health or something. And in that case, I don't think you could. How are you going to predict it or head it off? Sit each primitive person down and give them a stern talking to, and even if you enlighten people as to which is a big part of it, information presentation. Even if you enlighten every single person as to the dangers and so forth, a lot of people are going to say, yeah, that sounds pretty scary. I think I'd like to try that,
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the mind of an addict. Yeah, what is addiction? Where does addiction come from? I mean, I think of it in terms of, all I can say is I know for me, there's a little button in there somewhere that is the let's get crazy button that gets flipped on after a couple of drinks or a couple of tokes or a couple of whatever. Everything changes. And I guess that let's get crazy stuff was what initially, summoned and enticed me into into what became an alcohol addiction and, a lifestyle. Yeah, I mean, broadly speaking, in modern day terms, you'd regulate the drug and you'd give all the advantages you could give to, socially to everyone growing up and developing and thriving in the best possible environment. And that would probably take care of the, I don't know, then that brings up another point of who are the addicts that start out saying, like as far as I'm concerned myself, that, okay, I'm looking for something in life and whatever is profound and explosive and exciting, and whatever holds possibilities for the most, tumultuous type of experience. I was looking for that, and physically.
It was the 60s, too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it was you know, it was the biggest change with how we the kids looked at this thing. Here it is. I can get high. Wow. Of course, you know, we were drinking, but and you with some acid, me just once or twice, looking for, like you said, looking for that light, but it didn't turn out that well.
Yeah, and I know as far as myself, I always say it was a good dodge for me, the 60s. Oh, I'm a dropout. I'm a bohemian.
Right.
But I would have been a dropout and a bohemian in, 1460, 1760, 1960. But I'm only speaking for myself.
Yeah.
Again, the question to me would be, or one of the questions would be, what about the people that get accidentally, you get the crazy people that are looking for something different,
Yep.
something extraordinary, and then you have the people that are either, going along with the social pressures of their friends or just accidentally ingest some things because they're there, and then they find themselves addicted. And of course, I presume, or from what I've seen and heard with opiates, it's a lot faster a process, the addiction process, than alcohol, I guess. But again, yeah. And the other thing, I think one of the biggest things that's important, is that they would have in a political discussion or something like that, is allowing research, promoting research to study the thing, because we don't know. I mean, they can, we've got broad concepts and popular ideas that, if we don't, if nobody up to before the age of 21 has any access to anything, and that'll do it, but they don't friggin' know, because they haven't conducted the research.
Right.
The people and the mechanisms and the scientists and the laboratories and the programs, and are all there, but they need to be fully funded and allowed to the wide.
In my opinion, I've been doing that. First show of the season, guys.
Let's see.
I don't think the programs are in place, or they are in place and they aren't working because the system is broken. We have 5 minutes.
Oh, well, one thing I think looking at it, when I say programs, I'm thinking scientific programs that they would set up to study things. Yeah. And, a lot of it has been restricted and prevented and discouraged by the government. And, it doesn't have the funding. And, even with marijuana and that type of stuff that's very prominent now, it had, let's say psychedelic drugs haven't been, scientists have had restricted access to a lot of that, so they can't, they haven't been able to run their studies and do their research and stuff. And you and I would probably differ in some ways. I think I'm probably more liberal in my, I am just a very liberal thinker, in the sense that I look at everything hypothetically and say, okay, let's open the discussion up, and let's open all the ideas and everything, throw them all on the table. And a lot of people you know, would be consider that dangerous or something to get to be that liberal. But I live in a philosophical bubble, so it's okay with me.
Well, you always romanticize of
That-
growing old
that
as a
too.
drunk
Yeah.
with your books there and possibly a pipe. It's not working. What we have going is not working. It's costing us $1 trillion a year and 200, I think it may be just addicts, are dying a day. At this point, we've far exceeded the deaths, the death toll in Vietnam, far excel, you know. And my thing is, we aren't focusing on this thing. Like I said, I was delighted to hear that when Susan told me that at least the
Yeah.
only other one that I've heard a mention of the epidemic is AOC, is Senator, the new senator. I forget how to what her really name, but Xiong out of New York, I believe the Bronx, and I heard her talking about it. But all right, you want to do another half hour?
Sure, keep the coffee flowing.
I
and-
just want to say at the end that because you came on the show, we are going to give you a trip to India, and you're going to attend an ayahuasca camp, which some people are dying from because everybody's in on the money. It was cool at first, but or maybe you become a shaman. I can see that. I'll be rooting for you, and that's a pun because it is a root. I'll explain that. Okay, we're going to wrap that one up.